What is your plan? Because you can't wing it. I winged it for years, and I was moving like a snail. Once I figured out what I wanted and I stuck to my plan, then I was able to move forward. Who do I got to call? Who do I have to email? Who do I have to meet? How many new headshots do I have to get? I got to get in the horn with my agent and just stop. I'm not going to wait for them to call me. I'm going to call you. What do you got for me today? And if they don't like that, well, screw them. Get a new agent.
Hey everyone, it's AJ. I'm back, and you're listening to Inside Acting, a podcast dedicated to demystifying the inner and outer game of success in the entertainment industry.
Sorry, I got so used to our old structure that I realized you already said your name. Hi everybody, I'm Trevor, I'm present, and it's episode 260, the third and final part of our decidedly awesome encore interview series with P90X-creator Tony Horton. I love this man. In part 3, Tony shares the finer points of his success philosophy, including why you should embrace working for free. He makes a compelling case for it, guys. The empowering truth about your agent, hint, they're not God. Why the most important thing you could possibly do for your continued success is to surround yourself with kick-ass people. We all knew that, but the way Tony puts it is pretty inspiring. And why asking for exactly what you want, including help, including support, is the only way to fly.
Support for this episode of Inside Acting comes from Rehearsal Pro, the next version of Rehearsal, the essential app for actors. And it's now available in the iTunes App Store. If you want to learn your lines, be off book for your auditions, explore your character, make stronger choices, and do a whole lot more, go to rehearsal.pro/IAP right now to learn all about the great new features and the newest version of Rehearsal, the groundbreaking app designed by actors for actors. That's rehearsal.pro/IAP.
Hello, Ajmijir.
Ajmijir. Yes,
Ajmijir,
hello.
as Siri calls you. So, it's been a little while since we've had you on the show. I know that there's been a lot kind of going on in your world, personally, but also professionally. Tell us what's up.
Yeah, man. It's just been like one blow after another. If you can't hear in my voice, listeners, longtime listeners, I am sick. I have some kind of cold of some kind. I thought I had a sinus infection for a while, but I think it's just a cold. And it is a legitimate physical manifestation of what's going on inside of me. I am battling many external and internal demons right now, and it has manifested itself like this. We can talk a little bit more about this when we get to my pick of the week, which I have found incredibly supportive and would recommend to all of our listeners. But there have been a few bright spots in this darkness. Few auditions. Went back to the Young and the Restless casting room, which was great. Had a pilot audition. And probably the most fun thing was I did a table reading of a feature film, a screenplay that some writer-producer friends of mine are trying to sell in January. And these are people who work. You know, they were on all three of them wrote for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And while they were writing for that, they got basically kind of bored. I probably shouldn't tell this story because they'll get mad at me, but they kind of got a little bored and they would sneak off and basically write this screenplay together. And it's really funny. They brought it into Howie Gold's workshop, and then we just stayed in touch because they liked my take on a couple of the characters and wanted me to come in and be a part of this reading. So it was a long table full of actors in this room, like an event room and like a hotel. And it was packed. There was probably like 75 people there. all like, other writers, producers, their friends. Bob Odenkirk was in the audience, which was really awesome. So yeah, it was just like a really cool vibe and so much fun. And the screenplay is really funny. So a lot of people were laughing, and then it just felt like being on stage when it came to when my scenes came up and I was doing my lines. It was like, I was making people laugh, and that always feels good as an actor who enjoys comedy and enjoys this work. It's like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And I got some really great feedback to that effect. Afterwards, when they were like, oh my gosh, like, you not only, like, what did he say? Like, do you have any idea how rare it is to have a trained actor who has comedic timing? Like, that's so rare. Like, it shouldn't be rare, but it is. It's more rare than you'd think. And I don't consider myself like a comedy person, but he was saying, there's a rhythm and a musicality to it that you get. And I was like, there it is. I did musical theater. I do musical theater. That's my in. So, yeah, I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to start coughing.
That's very cool, man. So you're really, not only is your work improving and becoming more specific, but you're also really developing and cultivating these relationships in the industry that allow you to take your increasingly specific work and present it in increasingly specific contexts. Which is really cool. And you know what's interesting about that is that's something that you can't fake. You can't shortcut that. That is only the product of sustained effort over many, many years in this industry. Yeah. And I feel like if there's one thing we could impart with this podcast, it's that there, there's a lot of schools out there, online things, and they promise to sort of, supercharge your career and like bullet train you from zero to hero in the span of, insert like super short amount of time here. And that does happen. And I do think there's a lot of value to those things, but there's just no, replacement. There's no way that you can get around sustained effort over time, being kind, working hard, and showing up. And that's what you're doing. And that's what everybody, I think, that we know that's kind of still at this is doing.
I love it. I also just want to add one additional thing too is, and I think this is coming from all the personal stuff I'm going through right now. There's an authenticity or an ease or an honesty. That's a really good word for it. Like an honesty to knowing like who the people are that you vibe with. Mm-hmm. And I got a call back for a musical that is happening at La Jolla. That's probably an out of town tryout for a Broadway run. And then I had this pilot audition and this table read and the Young and the Restless audition and all these things, all these people I like you said, I have these relationships with, but I also feel like I vibe with them. It's like when I went for the pilot audition, I didn't think the part was right for me. And I was like, this is usually a death knell in a CD office. And they're like, no, whatever, say it. And I was like, I don't really feel like this is right for me. And they were like, you can always pass. And I was like, no, I can act it. I just feel like the type is not right. And they were like, totally get it. And like that kind of relationship, having that candid a conversation in a casting director's office or with these, screenwriters or with my friend who's the casting director or this woman I met for the very first time who was doing this musical at La Jolla. There's an honesty to whether or not you actually vibe with the person. Like you can cultivate a relationship, but if you don't feel like you get along with that person, like there's offices I go into and I'm like, man, I don't feel like I vibe with these people. And I keep going in because I'm like, hopefully someday, right? But I just don't feel like I get along with them or whatever. And then there's offices where, I walk in and they're like, hey, good to see you again. And like, oh, man, thank you again for bringing me in. I love that we keep trying, blah, blah, blah. That's sort of what happened in the whole NCIS office, And I guess what I'm saying is, in addition to what you just said, Trev, there's no use in like lying to ourselves that like, oh, this is going great. This is a great relationship because they keep calling me in. They may keep calling you in, but it's not necessarily, you still may not vibe with that person.
Yeah.
Hence calling them meetings instead of auditions. But
yeah.
Anyway.
And that brings up something too. I mean, we've done a lot of, I guess you would call it emotional intelligence work, you and I, and many people in our circle. That's kind of how we all connected, many of us. And I feel like there is a lot to be said for intuitively understanding, and this is something that you've done more work on than I have, professionally at least, in like a trained setting, but knowing how to communicate with different types of people. You know, getting that there are different personalities and different come-froms and different sort of psychological, for lack of a better description, psychological, frames, I guess, that run people's lives, and shifting your communication style to sort of better complement them, which is a subtle way of sort of leading the conversation. So there is that aspect, and I think that is a highly undervalued and underrepresented and underappreciated skill set in our world today. So there's that, but at the same time, you've also got to make a judgment call with some of these relationships and knowing when it's just not going to serve you. You know, like clearly the vibe, despite my shifting my communication style as much as possible, sometimes it's just not going to work. And I'm thinking of somebody specific in my life. They, perhaps you, and by you I mean anybody listening, perhaps you guys know the type. Julia Cameron might call them crazy makers. These are people that just constantly have drama in their lives. They've constantly got some big issue or some big problem to report on, and when you ask them what's up, it's always some negative thing, and they're criticizing somebody. They love to cast bad guys in their lives. And I know someone like this, and very recently I had an experience with them where I just had to like flat out tell them, and I kind of feel like a jerk about it, but I kind of don't too, because I'm glad of the outcome. I had to tell them, I said, look, your negativity is something I really just don't want to be around. I'm sorry.
Wow.
And
Good for you,
and this person got, I suppose understandably offended, and they, kind of very rudely turned their back and walked away. And then they were a subscriber to my newsletter, and they unsubscribed last night. And I, part of me is kind of like, oh man, I really upset that person. I really should go make it right. And the other part of me is like, good riddance.
Right?
Like, I have tried so hard to like enjoy myself around this person, and it never works. And so now it's like I've just been honest with them, and like it worked itself out. Like they weren't meant to be part of my tribe, and amen, moving on. So there is that aspect as well. So when you say vibing with people, I think that's something to take into consideration. There's a lot that we can do to become ease makers in other people's lives. But then there's a point at which we've just got to be like, look, you're not like feeding me and my vision of the world at all in any way, shape, or form. And I don't want to surround myself with that energy. And so, good luck. You don't have to wish them ill or anything, but you can say, not for me, and move on.
Yeah.
And I think that goes professionally. I think that there may be casting offices that you walk into, or professional relationships that you have, where you may need to maybe not put it the way that I put it with this person recently, but maybe find a way to sort of sever that relationship if it's toxic, even if it results in fewer employment opportunities for you as a working artist. I don't know if you've had any experiences like that, AJ, or anybody listening, but if you have, I'd love to hear about them and how they went.
I haven't had many, but I had one recently. I think I told you, where I left an audition and I immediately emailed my manager and I said, never send me out for anything this person is casting ever again. Wow.
Did you tell this story on the show?
I did. It was it was a couple of months ago. It was just the unprofessionalism of the entire experience. I didn't feel like she took her job seriously, and I didn't feel like she respected actors. And I'm like, why would I subject myself to that? You know what I mean? And there was also this moment of like feeling kind of I don't know. Pity's not a really supportive emotion, right? So it was just sort of like feeling bad, I guess, for actors who don't necessarily have the buffer of representation.
Yeah.
And therefore end up on those kinds of auditions.
Yeah, they're a bit more at the mercy of those relationships.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Oh, anyway, deep rabbit hole, but I don't want to skip out on our catch-up without first acknowledging some of your big wins and some of the stuff you have going on right now and coming up, because I know about several of these things, and I was really excited when I got a chance to experience them. So you want to talk about a couple of these?
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of our listeners probably saw this, but I had the honor and joy and fortune and fun of voicing a quick web spot for Mercedes-Benz of Long Beach. This comes from a production company that I've worked with in the past, and they reached out to me after probably a year of me just not connecting with them. And a big part of that's on me. I didn't follow up with them and just say like, hey, what do you guys need? I think that there's a lot to be said for just reaching out to somebody, your contact, and just saying like, hey, what's up? What are you guys working on? Is there anything I can help you with? And there's nothing self-promotion-y about that at all, I don't think, especially if you're not, you don't just stick them on a newsletter list where you just talk about your acting stuff. You reach out individually and just say, thinking of you guys, wonder what you're working on, how I can help. Just wanted to touch base. So I didn't do that, but anyway, they got in touch with me, and I voiced a 25-second web spot for Mercedes-Benz of Long Beach, voiceover spot, which was pretty cool. It was so quick and easy, and I've never been more happy to be part of the union, just because of the rates, man. The rates are great, and I felt, I have to admit, I experienced a slight moment of guilt when I realized that the rate for the work I was doing was like ridiculously skewed in my favor. Like if you look at it from a time investment point of view for the actual session, I got paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars per hour. But if you look at it from this is how I sort of talked myself out of that and just learned to own my self-worth again. But if you look at it from the perspective of not only being a union member and all the dues that come along with that, because it's not cheap to join the union, but also all the training and the hours and the work that you put in, and owning that the skill set that you bring is not something that everybody can do. When you really look at it from take that all in, I really was able to own this number that I was a little bit uncomfortable throwing out there as my quote. So I had to do a little bit of mental gymnastics to sort of be at peace with that. But in the end, I'm really pleased with the results. I think they got a great value out of it, because you got to realize, this is also it's an exchange. It's a business exchange, right? So there's value for both parties. And so really that's what it comes down to. So there's that. That was fun. I'm working on a couple audiobooks that are going really well. I've just in crunch time for those. I want to get as much of those done before the holidays as possible. But it's been great to just be on the mic consistently every single day for a few hours working.
Yeah, man.
And then lastly, to round it out, I'm leading my final VO to Go intensive of the year this coming Sunday, the 18th. And this is a annual review of your business art and craft when it comes to voiceover. So we're going to take a look at all the different sort of loose ends that may have accrued over the years running your voiceover business. And if you are considering coming to this class and haven't been to any of the others, this is actually a really good one to start with, because then you get to sort of get a general overview of what we cover throughout the next year. Because in January, we're going to start off a brand new curriculum, starting from like day one, getting started with no background whatsoever, all the way through to the end of the year, where you're going to be hopefully, represented by an agent, booking consistently with jobs, part of the union, all that fun stuff. That's really what we take you through. So come join me on Sunday the 18th. Details and registration at vo2gogo.com/Hollywood. So, speaking of VO2GoGo,
I was like, this is a great segue.
It's a great segue to spread some love for our sponsor. So, award-winning voiceover training system, winner of Backstage's Reader's Choice Award for Best Voiceover Training 4 years in a row. Visit vo2gogo.com/start for a free getting started in voiceover online class that'll help you add voiceover to your acting portfolio. Pretty cool, pretty sweet, pretty free to get started. That's vo2gogo.com/start. And we have a question for you, AJ, on this episode that we want to quickly address before our third and final part with Tony. So, I'm sorry, AJ, that's you. Robert writes in, and he says he wants to know what happened to AJ's agent before AJ left Los Angeles to go to New York to do Heathers. Why did the relationship with your agent dissolve, if it dissolved? And did they not want you to take the Heathers gig, or was it coming to an end regardless? It sounds like the current relationship with Headline is working out well. He hopes to meet with them someday. So I guess this is really sort of a request for a status update on your representation and a little bit of history when it comes to that time.
Yeah, I can actually make this pretty simple, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. First of all, Headline is fantastic. They've been great. They're a boutique agency that has worked their tail off for me. They are submitting me for stuff not only in New York, where I'm putting myself on tape, but they're also submitting me for stuff here in Los Angeles while I grab a couple more credits in order to secure a slightly better LA agent, or I might just go back to New York. Who knows? But everything is in because so much is in flux in my personal life. Everything is on the table for my professional life as well, including potentially having a come to Jesus conversation with my manager. But that's a story for another time. So anyway, the moving to New York thing. So this was just timing. Timing is everything. I was not being represented by Stone Manor Salners. I was being hip pocketed by them. So I was not under contract, and I was getting some traction, and they're a really fantastic agency here in town. They don't like taking chances on new talent because of the people who are in charge there. So I was really grateful to be hip pocketed by them, or freelancing, as you might call it in other markets besides Los Angeles on the East Coast and stuff. My manager would submit me for auditions, and if she couldn't make it happen, she would put in a phone call to them. They would make one phone call, and I would have the appointment. I mean, they have that kind of clout. So it's great to have them in my corner, but I really had 1.5 agents who were in my corner there. One guy who was like my champion, another guy who was coming around, who was one of the partners, and another guy who went from being an assistant to being a junior agent. So say like 2, but 1 and 2 halves, so to speak. So the day I booked Heathers, literally the day I booked Heathers, my manager called over there to let them know. And then she called me back and said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Why?" And she said, "So-and-so, the person who was my champion there, had just been fired not an hour before. He was relieved of his duties at the agency." So I was like, holy crap. And what was probably a reminder of my existence to the decision makers. Oh, right, that guy. Yeah, no, we're not gonna sign him, and we're not gonna work with him anymore, right? It was sort of this thing of like, hey, he just booked this thing. Oh, he booked Ensemble and a musical in New York. They probably looked down their noses at me, and that was that. They were like not interested in. So it was sort of, it honestly was part of the decision to go. Was like, well, now I don't have representation here in LA, or agents here in LA. I've got this cool opportunity to go explore the New York market. I might as well take it. That's a long story short. So yeah, that's how that happened.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. Hope that helps, Robert.
I was just going to say, Robert, if you have any questions, I mean, that's like, I don't know what the lesson is there necessarily. So if you have questions, follow-up questions, please let me know. Let us know. Happy to continue. I'm an open book. Happy to continue talking about it.
The relationship between actors or artists and agents is always such an interesting one to me, because you hear about these relationships where there's like major power differences and a relationship that's sort of skewed in that sort of unhealthy way. Then you have relationships where it's like the agent and the artist are best friends, and they get dinner together and they love working together, and they go to each other's baby showers and stuff like that. So it's always a trip. But I think that and Tony talks about this in part 3 of the interview coming up in a second, that they're another human being, and if it's not working out, like, what you want is a professional working relationship. And I think a big part of that looks like being able to have a friendly conversation with them about what they had for dinner, or what their favorite movie is, or, their favorite golf course to play on. I don't know what it is, but something along those lines, I think, is something that you want to take into consideration. Is this a pleasant person for me to have in my life?
Yeah.
It's a big part of it, It's not all about opportunities, especially if you are in this thing for the long haul. I think a lot of us come at it from that mindset of like, I need my agent to get me work. Yeah, that's sort of the baseline functional, piece of the puzzle. Your agent is really more about negotiating the contracts and hopefully leveraging their relationships to help sort of get you on people's radars. But again, you're going to be doing a lot of phone calls and back and forths and things like that with this person, and money's going to be involved. You should like them. And they should like you. This comes back to the emotional intelligence stuff, vibing.
Absolutely. And I did with the one guy who was my what I call my champion there. I definitely vibed with him, and the other guys, not so much.
Yeah.
So it wasn't I don't know. I guess it wasn't that big of a surprise when you take that into account. Yeah,
and if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, I wish my agent relationship was like that. They don't even know I exist. We don't have dinner together. We don't go to each other's barbecues. It's like, guess what? They're not the only agent in Los Angeles or in New York or in your market, wherever it is. There are hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of agents looking for actors just like you. It's like, so like the perfect relationship is out there for you. Don't settle. Go find it. Be proactive and find it, man. Find it. That's your homework.
It sounds like we just turned into a relationship podcast.
I know.
You're like, the perfect relationship is out there for you, man. Just go find it.
Yeah. Huh. That's right. In fact, for $15.95 a month.
True. Oh God, here we go.
You can join Inside Acting's new Make My Agent Match matching service.
Match.com.
Oh, jeez. I bet you there's somebody out there working on that.
That'd be an interesting service. Oh my God, patent that right now, dude.
Possibly. All right, guys.
Let's get into this interview before we get ourselves in trouble.
Without any further ado, part 3 of our awesome encore interview series with Tony Horton, P90X-creator himself. Enjoy this. We'll catch you on the other side. Shift was like for you, coming from an experience that was, it sounds like, so rooted in not rooted in, but the experience was just one of lack, it sounds like, and then shifting to one of so much abundance. How has your mindset shifted or adapted, or what have you come to believe now about the way the world works or the universe, if we want to get out there with it, that you just didn't believe before?
Well, I had a pretty long process. You look at some folks that get fame and fortune early, and maybe they're not sort of mentally or emotionally really ready or prepared for it. It comes too soon, and so there's a greater likelihood for some folks like that to kind of blow it. Right? I didn't get my success till my 40s. I mean, I wasn't hand to mouth anymore. I wasn't doing mine with the peer anymore. I wasn't borrowing money from my parents anymore. I wasn't collecting $25 so I could eat Cheerio and yogurt anymore. That was stage 1. I had the wherewithal to survive, and that was cool. And then the next stage was, a better gig, meeting new people, reading these self-help books, going to these self-help seminars, whether it be, I went to seminars just for relationships, how to be a decent man to a woman, you know what I mean? Getting my head out of my ass and not just chasing, chasing
Tail.
Thank you. Tail was the word I'm looking for. And, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so there was a lot of that going on, and I was in Southern California, so this was kind of the way it was. And, I just realized that doesn't serve me anymore. I got to grow up. I've got to consume information that allows me to be a better person, be a better actor, be a better performer, be a better trainer, no matter what it was. And this comes from a guy who was a crappy student. I was a terrible student. But at some point you got to figure this crap out, or it's just going to go downhill. And I didn't want to go downhill. I wanted to go uphill. I wanted to get better. I wanted to get smarter. I wanted a better life. I wanted nice things. I wanted a nice car, not a broken down car. I wanted a decent home. These are things that I think almost everybody wants. But how do you get there without screwing it up so you lose it, right? Mm. And so it was a series of it was stages. It was that broke survival stage with a bunch of different gigs, and then there was the regular job as a PA and training some people. So I had the PA thing and then the training thing, and then didn't have to do the PA thing anymore. Now I was pretty much a trainer, so that's like stage 3. But now I'm a trainer performer where I've got gigs for this TV show and for Nordic Track. And then from there, everything was just in the right place. Think of those different stages before I met Carl Deichler. So when I met Carl Deichler, sure, I was a little bit nervous that first time we did Great Body Guaranteed. It wasn't like I had so much experience that I just got in there and knocked it out, but I was young. So, but I had the look and I had the routines down. I knew how to create a routine, and that was pretty easy. And the beautiful thing about shooting DVDs, if you screw the first one up, you do it again. I'm not doing live theater here, Mm-hmm. And I was with the right people. I had really encouraging, smart, good producers, good directors who really liked what I did. And they said, try it this way. And I was always open to suggestion. I was never trying to think. I never thought that I had all the answers. That was another thing that was really helpful for me. And a lot of it was luck. For every 100 companies with ideas that are trying to sell something, 99 are gone. And the 100th one doesn't survive 10 years. It's an absolute freak fluke, whatever. You can tell. I've been working all day. I probably sound like I have the lowest energy in the world. But, and that's just the way it was. And so the next stage was I didn't have to be a personal trainer anymore. I didn't have to drive all over town. I could actually keep working with Beachbody, got a contract with them. And I still do side gigs, and I got these speaking engagements. I had never done a
speaking. Really?
Oh yeah,
speaking engagements.
I would say a good portion of my side income is. I did an event for Johnson & Johnson in Phoenix. I did an event at the Omega Center in upstate New York. I've been to 36 military bases around the world.
Motivational speeches. Motivational.
Yeah, they're motivational speeches. They're based in health and wellness and fitness. Because you got a huge fan base, and they want to know what you want to know right now. How did I get there? So usually when I get up on stage, I say, "Hey, look, you see me up here. I'm pretty fit. I'm 55. I can do some pretty fun stuff. So I'll do a handstand and I'll do some crazy physical thing, and I'll say, and that's just fun and easy. I couldn't do it in my teens, my 20s, and my 30s. And let me tell you how I got there. Let me tell you how I continue to do this. And it's basically made up of these. It depends on the length of the seminar, but it's either 6 things or 11 things, depending on how much time I have. If I have an hour, I make it 6, and I stretch it out. If I have an hour and a half or whatever, 90 minutes, I do the whole 11 laws. And so people learn what I know in the course of an hour and a half. You need variety in your fitness. You need to be consistent, because if you're not going to get better. You need to have a certain amount of intensity to be outside your comfort zone, because if you're in your comfort zone, you're going to stay where you are. If you keep thinking you can do the same things over and over with a different result, well then, you're going to get stuck. You need a plan. What's your plan? What is your plan? Because you can't wing it. I winged it for years, and I was moving like a snail. Once I figured out what I wanted and I stuck to my plan, then I was able to move forward. Who do I got to call? Who do I have to email? Who do I have to meet? How many new headshots do I have to get? I got to get in the horn with my agent and just stop. I'm not going to wait for them to call me. I'm going to call you. What do you got for me today? And if they don't like that, well, screw them. Get a new agent. There's agents every freaking 10 feet in this town. Your agent isn't God. And I made that mistake. I had an agent just recently. I had him for 5 months. They had their shot. I go, you're done. You're done. I'm not going to wait for you. I'm trying to build my brand. My phone's supposed to be ringing. You're supposed to be so special. You ain't doing it. Let them go. I'm not going to tell you who it was. They know who they are. Don't you? So
I'm asking him after we stop recording.
I'll let you know. So wow. So that's it. There's a great expression. I don't know. Somebody told me I came up with it was, Ask for what you want. Ask for what you want. 95% of the time you'll get it, and the 5% you don't means you weren't supposed to get it in the first place.
Yeah.
But, I walk into a restaurant. I don't know. There's nothing on the menu. Do you have fruit back there? You got vegetables? You got some lean chicken? Put that in a plate. It's going to be extra. I don't give a damn. Put it on the plate. What's going to be? It's going to be like $3 more. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like with the people that I work with, and as an actor, too many actors are not working because how did Tom Cruise get to where he is? Who is he special? Is he acting royalty? No, he's a kid who wanted it so friggin' bad that he did everything crazy outside of the box. And especially right now, every single actor that has any, has creativity in the pinky of their finger. You got YouTube, you got Instagram, you've got Twitter, Facebook. You know what I mean? And there's a movie camera inside your smartphone.
Yeah.
Get busy, figure out how to use the damn thing. Be unique, be special, and start putting stuff up. Make it. I mean, the whole gig I had all day today. This young comedian, he's got some great ideas. He surrounded himself with good people, and we shot these funny bits about how he created P90X, and I just, he gave it all to me.
You're just the
he was my muse, So without him, I'd be nothing. I'd still be living in a van down by the river, right? But with him was, and that was a funny idea, and I signed up for it. Do I get paid for this gig? No. Not every gig is a paid gig. It's not supposed to be. Like I said, I've been to 36 military bases around the world. I've done workouts at the Canadian Embassy, at the Pentagon, at schools and colleges, and a lot of them pay zero. Doesn't matter. What that is, those are rehearsals. Those are rehearsals for the gigs that when you do get paid, you can get up there and knock it out of the park.
Wow.
You do theater, you do friggin' mime at the goddamn pier at 1 a.m. so you can get your $25 so you can feed your face with Cheerios and yogurt for the next 3 days. That's how you have to pay your dues. If you're sitting around waiting for people to give you the gig because you're so special, because you got a SAG card and an acting class, well, good. You can get in line with the tens of thousands of other punks who aren't getting anywhere in this world. So if you've got talent, people will notice, but you got to let them see it. So that's what I did. I just did it my way. I mean, it would have been great to be, a cross between Jim Carrey and Brad Pitt, because I've got those skills. But it didn't work out that way for me. So I found my other passion. My other passion was helping people feel good, helping people lose weight, helping people, get fit. And I got to control that. I didn't have to wait for the phone to ring. I didn't have to wait for a casting director. I didn't have to wait for my agent or my manager or somebody else. I made that happen. And the beautiful thing is, when you're in the service industry like that, and whether you're a masseuse or you're doing hair and nails or whatever the heck it is, everybody needs that stuff. Everybody needs a trainer. Not everybody. People need some way to lose weight. There's an obesity crisis. I mean, it was easy. It was like, fishing in a barrel. It was easy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And once you get one person fit, a lot of people come to me, how do you start your career? Start training people for free. What? Mm-hmm. Just start a fit club, open up your garage door, move all your crap out of the way, put some mats on the ground, and start beating people up. That's how you do it. If you're fit and you're funny and you got your own unique thing, then and then just say, hey, look, let's do a 2-week trial. If not, here's the price, blah, blah, blah. I mean, are you happy being overweight? Are you happy eating crap? Do you want some solutions? I got them. Look at me. I'll give you what I know. And people, that's what I did. The first workout was, hey, let me come over. If you like what I do, great. Boom. And I have them all prepay in advance. So what's the deal? You can prepay for 8, you can prepay for 10, you can prepay for 24. The more you prepay for, the more discount you get. You pay cash, then I will always pay my taxes like I always have, and I will never not, because that would be illegal.
Right,
so,
right. We don't do that.
Whatever you did, what I mean? So, and it's the same thing with any gig, with any, if you want to. So many people are unemployed and don't have to. They're just afraid to think outside of the box, and that's what I did.
That's really
and so the
powerful.
final phase was developing fitness programs, and now I'm building my own brand, doing my own thing, doing sunglasses and doing clothing and doing home, Tony Horton Kitchen, which is
I haven't seen that stuff.
Well, dude,
that's
you got
really cool.
Yeah, I mean, they're all young fledgling businesses that don't have a lot of media behind them, but they're holding their own, and we're finding new ways to get them to grow.
Oh, that's great. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. It's cool because so much of what we talk about on this podcast is the DIY aspect, because there's never been a better time, I think, in history to be alive, when you have all of this technology and all these opportunities to be alive and be in America nonetheless, Yeah. So it's so cool to hear your take on that, and also hear that the message is do it for free, because that's rehearsal for the times when you're going to be getting paid for it. Yeah. I love that. I know we're running out of time, so I wanted to just wrap up with a couple questions. Mm-hmm. And the first one is, I'm just dying to know, somebody approaches you tomorrow and says, hey, we want you in our movie with A, B, and C movie stars. You'd do it, right?
In a New York second.
All right.
Without hesitation.
I am waiting for it. I am waiting to see Tony Horton in a, major
there's
feature film.
There's been a push. Now, I don't think I have enough Q factor to get there just yet, but there's been some friends of mine that want to try to get me to host SNL, which would be a blast.
Oh my god!
You know what I mean?
That'd be amazing.
You're right, it would.
You should start a Facebook group. Who did they get? They got somebody.
There already is a Facebook. I think there's like 8 people on it, but
yeah.
But that would be a fun way to do it.
Yeah, you start enough.
And like today's YouTube video with this young comic and another pretty well known internet guy, Mike Chang. So it was me, Mike, and this guy,
Six Pack Shortcuts. Yeah,
Six Pack Shortcuts. So the three of us got together. I'm sort of the king of television fitness. Mike was the king of YouTube fitness. Mm-hmm. And the whole line was for Christopher to be the sort of the king of radio fitness. You know what I mean? So
that's awesome.
That was the joke.
I can't wait to see that.
But it'd be fun to do that. A friend of mine's written a script called Wild Bill. Ned Farr, who's the director of P90X, Ned, and it's a funny script, man. It's completely insane. Where I play this sort of half-witted New Mexico State Police, CHP, not CHP, that'd be California, but highway patrolman. And, just sort of a Barney Fife guy, you know what I mean, with muscles. So there's sort of a weird oxymoron there.
That'd be awesome.
And, there's a bunch of guys, who are bringing drugs in and heroin. And all the local cops just ignoring it. And they're just, the local cops are all like Keystone cops too. But I know there's something up, and I solve the problem, and I get the girl. It's pretty neat script.
So it's like Super Troopers kind of, but...
But sort of there's a little drama aspect to it, you know what I mean, as well. So it's not complete silliness. And so, cool. It needs about a $2 million budget. So I think it'd be a fun thing to do. I hope to do it one day before I get too damn old,
Yeah. Well, I sense the tipping point is nigh. I think between the thing you were shooting today and inside acting, so I think we're there.
Totally, yeah.
I love it. I mean, today was funny. It was all improvisational, right? It was all just, but it was really fun to fake cry and to fake laugh and to come up with silly moves and to react to him, doing his thing without looking like, it was just really good to go there again, and it was fun.
That is so cool. I can't wait to see it. So we have 2 questions we like to wrap up with every guest with.
Okay.
And we love asking them because we always get really fascinating answers. So the first one is, and I think you've answered this, but I'd be curious to hear what you're going to say anyway. Do you think this career, and when I say career, I mean your fitness work, did this choose you or did you choose it?
Oh boy. Did I choose it or did it choose me? Oh, I would say, and I would imagine that most people's answers would be similar. It was a combination of those 2 things. Yeah, It was serendipitous indeed. A lot of luck. But what is luck? Luck is opportunity meeting readiness, right? So opportunity was there. I was ready. It presented itself, and so all I had to do was say yes. I could have said no. I could have turned things down. You know what I mean? Can you imagine Tom Petty calls you to train him? Probably some guys would have come up with some excuse that they weren't ready because they were nervous. It's a celebrity. I don't want to deal, Right. I just jump in, I think for a lot of years I was scared often, but I'm always fighting the desire to say no. I always am. It's all the time. Like this today's podcast. I got to get up.
Yeah.
I'm leaving tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I haven't packed yet. That makes me a little nervous, but I'll figure it out. I'll throw some crap in a bag, you know what I mean? Or this thing I did today. It would have been nice to have a day off because I'm not getting paid for either one of these things, but I understand how important they are. You know what I mean? And that's what I kept doing all the way through. I just kept on showing up. I kept on showing up. Woody Allen, I don't know if he's gets the credit for saying 80% of life is showing up, and I think the other 20% is making sure that you're paying attention when you're there.
Yeah.
And so I chose it because it was easy to move forward into it. It wasn't like I was banging my head all the way in. And it chose me because I had the skill level to be able to help people. So, Billy Idol chose me, Tom Petty chose me, Annie Lennox chose me, Sean Connery chose me. These people could have picked other trainers, but they picked me. So, the TV shows that I got, the jobs at NordicTrack, they all came to me, you know what I mean? I had to go audition, right? But why would you not? There's a job, there's some money, you got bills to pay, you go.
Wow.
And not in 10 trillion years did I think I'd end up in this position where I ended up being, a fitness icon or whatever you want to call me, a guru. But I'm here, and it's a blast. I mean, honestly, my life is so much better than I thought it would ever turn out to be. And I've got my hard days, man. I've got this 2-week schedule. I'm going to Long Island. I'm going to New York. I'm shooting every day in New York. I'm doing interviews. I'm meeting with the head of the NFL's Player Association to maybe create a program for the retired NFL players that are really struggling. Meeting with the Army Reservist General. It's just all this stuff is there's no money here yet. There's no income here, but you've got to go through all this development stuff. And that's it. I don't know. That's sort of a long-winded answer, but that's the answer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the second question is, if you could take everything that you've learned, all of your, and all of your experience and everything that you've, read or experienced or gone through or learned, whether it's, in your business practice and your acting practice and your acting classes and your, what you've learned about fitness, what you've learned from the people that you've trained, and boil it all down to one nugget of advice. Like, what is your one nugget of advice to others? Like, the legacy that you want to leave. Like, what would be that nugget of advice?
I don't want to sound cliche, but there's certain themes that happen in everybody's life. You look at somebody like Elon Musk. He's got his own car company, and not too many people have been able to pull that off. He's got his own spaceship company, Or you look at Bill Gates, or you look at Brad Pitt, or in this business. Who was Brad Pitt before that? The first movie he was in, Thelma and Louise, right? I mean, he was just a young kid, but sure, he was good looking. Sure, he had a certain style, but I would say the one thing. And like I said, I don't want to sound cliche, is what is it about you that makes you, really authentic, that makes you stand out? I had a friend of mine, this young kid who was, he did P90X, total stranger. I met him at the beach. He started working out with me. He was a little bit on the shy side, but he got in great shape, and he just listened to what I was doing. And he would just beg, borrow, and steal all of it. You know what I mean? Not to become a DVD workout guy, just because he loved getting better. He loved improving. He loved the whole process of getting super fit. And I liked him. He was just down to earth. He didn't, he had a great personality. He wasn't in your face. It was just something where I went, hey man, you got to come and work out with me, a little bit here. And all he did was, he used me as a mentor, not on purpose. He didn't say to me, hey, I want you to be my mentor. Can you show me the way? But that's really what it comes down to. It really comes down to making sure that you surround yourself with people who are kicking ass. Because, you are the 5 people you hang around the most. Mm-hmm. Right? And everybody's sitting around on the couch watching TV, smoking crack. Chances are you're not going to be a rocket scientist, you know what I mean? So, the one takeaway here is, and the point of that story was, now he's got a company that's come to him and wants him to do what I do, in a different format, through the internet and through YouTube and whatnot. And I fully support that. I mean, the people say, don't you look at that as competition? No, why wouldn't I want him to succeed? Why wouldn't I want a friend of mine to do really well? There are a lot of people in this country that are still struggling and still overweight and still need help. And I can't do it myself, but more people are going to run into him, see his style, see what he does. And so he was a out-of-shape kid who bought a program off of TV, and now he's going to have his own web thing, and that could develop into anything. It could develop into a TV show. It could develop into, its own workout DVDs. Who knows what it'll develop into? And it's because he was humble, and because he was, he did more listening than he did talking, and he found himself a mentor that helped him progress. So, for the young actors and actresses out there, don't be afraid to work for free. That's just rehearsal, man, to make you better. And and find some people in your life that are doing it right, and find a way to ask for their help. And a lot of times they're going to turn you down, because really successful people, they're busy, they're crazy, they got their own thing going on, and you're going to get a lot of no's. But you guys asked. Here you are. You're in my house. You know what I mean? Like I said, ask for what you want. 95% of the time you'll get it, and the other 5% you weren't supposed to have it in the first place. So Yeah.
Wow. Wow. You know, Tony, I have to say, one of the things that I really admire about you
is my hair.
Is your
my
dashing,
fabulous, flowing, gorgeous. I do not dye it, and if somebody brings that up again, I will go to your home and beat you.
I was going to say
the color of my freaking hair.
I was going to say your
my balls.
I was going to say your calves, but
no.
You know, my stepmom passed away a few years ago, and at the service, everybody who got up and spoke said, you know, the really wonderful thing about her is that she always had time for people. You never ever felt like you were rushing her or that she had somewhere more important to be or anything like that. And that really stuck with me, and it was a really special part of her. And through the videos that I've seen of, you know, YouTube clips and things, interviews with you and things like that, I've always gotten that sense about you. But it's really wonderful to sit down in your home and, you know, for an hour and a half we've been chatting. Hour and a half plus.
Man.
And you haven't once... It's just really wonderful to...
I haven't once looked at that clock over
that
your
clock.
shoulder.
Yeah, right.
I have no idea that it says 8:42.
Well, you know, it's just really wonderful. And I think I wanted to say it here on the show because I want people to get that I think that that's a really huge part of success as well, and of living a good, fulfilling life, you know, no matter what your calling is. And it's definitely pretty awesome, and it's something that's a big thing that I had been taking from just kind of following your career kind of on the periphery. But now sitting across from you, I'm definitely taking it in a much more tangible way. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
You know, and just to finish, I think the ultimate goal here is to be happy. You know, it's in the Constitution, the pursuit of happiness. And so, you know, notice when you're stressed out. Notice when you feel like you're not really present, you're not really in the moment. Because, I mean, life is too damn short, man. I can't believe I'm 55. I'm going to be 95 in 15 minutes, you know. So while I'm here at 55, I'm with you guys. I'm about this. I'm about helping people. That's fun for me. That's inspiring for me as well, because I know there might be a nugget or two in here that people are going to take away and go, you know what? 80% of what he said was crap. But I'm telling you, man, that 20%, that's magic for me. So that's what it's about. And I'm very fortunate. I mean, you know what it's like to have somebody come to your house and ask you about you? I mean, that's, you know, everybody wants that moment. You know what I mean? And hopefully half the things that I've said have been able to help people. And that's, I mean, whatever. I get to bed, get up, I can sleep on the plane. You know, I just know that this is going to help some folks. And as a young actor, I really struggled, and I didn't have this information. When at that age, didn't have it. You know what I mean? So I don't have to be standing in front of you to get it. You know, we've got this modern technology that allows us to be able to communicate with lots of people in a brand new, exciting way. And that's a good thing. That's a cool thing. And so that, like you said earlier in our conversation, there's so many means and ways in which to help people. And I'm just glad you guys were able to be here tonight. And I want to thank you for having me on. And I want to thank all our folks that are listening in. And you know, just keep plugging away, man. You know, do it. Find out if you love acting. Great. Find that other thing. What's that other thing? Because the two of them might come together to create another career, or you might be able to drift from one to the other. But either way, the goal here is to be able to do something that you have a lot of love for, a lot of passion for.
Wow, awesome. All right, well, that's it then. There's no other way to go out on that. Thanks again, Tony. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Hey folks, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed listening to Tony's interview series again, or for the first time if you've never heard it before. I know I did, Trevor. I didn't mention this before, but I listened. Of course, I caught up on my own podcast, the last couple of episodes. And man, not only was I digging, the bookends and the stuff that you were talking about, but I was really digging the interview series again. And I had forgotten. You know, it's we've talked about this before when we do these Redux interviews. You have a whole new set of, or I have a whole new set of contexts with which I listened to the interview. And it was great to have, you know, today's AJ listening to this interview from, gosh, how long ago was it now? 3 years? Something like that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. This was before P90X-3 came out, so, yeah, this was like 2013.
Yeah, so 3.5 years or something. So today's AJ was listening to with a whole new set of ears than 3.5 years ago, AJ, and it was really great. I was digging it. I had a big smile on my face the whole time, and was really inspired by him again, because I was inspired back then too. So thanks for bringing it out of the vault there, buddy, old pal.
I have a few interviews, I would say probably about 10 or 12, that I am so excited to just re-listen to, reintroduce on the podcast because of what you just described. Being able to listen to them again through new sets of ears, because we're different people than we were when a lot of these interviews were done. And so you get to, it's like watching a movie again that you really enjoyed. You pick up little things you missed the first time around, and everything makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
And when it comes
or it speaks to you differently.
Yeah.
You relate to it in a different way, because it's like, oh, I've had, now I relate to this movie about, I don't know, loss differently than I did, because now I've experienced that type of loss or something like that. You just relate to it differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I mean, fill in the blank, anything, right? It could be an interview on a podcast, or it could be a film, or an album, or a piece of artwork, a painting. It could be a meal. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've tried meals, like dishes that I've hated in the past, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, what's different about this? Nothing's different, Trevor, except you. Like, all of a sudden it's better or worse. And so, we change, and I think it's important to obviously look forward, but to make room in our lives for information that we may have missed the first time around to come back and make itself known. And if you're listening to this interview series again, you're in the right place at the right time. There are no accidents. What did you learn that you didn't the first time?
Ooh, I like it. Homework. What is your pick of the week, my friend?
So this is a Redux pick of the week as well, but they just updated it. It's called Inbox Pause. You can see it online, install it in your Chrome web browser at inboxpause.com. So I talked about this many, many episodes ago, but it's a plugin for Gmail. So this is for the Gmail power users out there. If you are like me and you have recently recognized that email is largely a time suck, a what they would call a shallow activity. You guys heard me sort of go off in a very loving way about the book Deep Work by Cal Newport last episode. So I've been looking at all my online activities, in fact, all my work altogether, through this new lens of like, what is a high leverage activity that's returning a lot of value to my life, that is taking me more quickly towards creating something of substance in the world and in my life, and then what's not, what feels productive and feels valuable but actually isn't. And email actually is one of those things that falls into the latter category. I timed myself recently, and I spend between 30 and 90 minutes processing email every freaking day.
Yeah.
And most of it's reading like bullshit newsletters that are interesting, that are sort of titillating to the sort of shallower parts of my mind, catchy headlines and things like that. Like today I caught myself reading about, the newest sort of evidence mounting that shows the Russians interfered with the U.S. presidential election. And I got sucked in, and I was starting to really research it. And then I was like, okay, Trevor, hold on. Like, how essential is this information to the legacy you want to leave in the world? The work you're doing right now, like how you're paying your rent, your current state of mind, your state of being, the relationships that are important to you. Is this informing any of those? And frankly, it wasn't. I mean, it's one thing to be an informed citizen. It's another to be a news junkie. And so I decided to unsubscribe from that newsletter and reclaim my time, the time I was investing in that. So anyway, let me get back to my pick of the week. Inbox Pause. It's a plugin that allows you to hit the pause button on incoming email. So you can essentially, if you're in your inbox and you're processing your email, you're deleting things, you're replying to things, nothing derails you faster than having new messages keep flowing in as you're processing. So this allows you to pause those messages coming in and collect them in a separate label or folder, and then release them to your inbox at a predetermined time, like 11 a.m., say, or 4 p.m., say. So you can sort of process your inbox in peace and not just keep getting onslaughts of new messages.
Process your inbox in peace from more inbox.
Yeah, and then you can check it later when you know that the sort of latest batch of emails will be sort of, dropped into your inbox. So I think it's a really valuable plugin just from a sanity perspective. So it's the 2-part lesson here is unsubscribe and weed out all the low value stuff in your inbox first. And then secondly, use something like Inbox Pause to sort of stem the flow so you don't end up wasting hours of your life, week, day, in email land.
Email land.
Yeah, inboxpause.com.
We've both picked Unroll.me as our pick of the week in the past.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah,
definitely recommend that to do the unscribing bit.
Yeah. So
for sure.
Tell us about your pick of the week.
So my pick of the week is a book called Dark Nights of the Soul by Thomas More. That's Nights without a K, so this is not a fiction. It is, it reminds me a little bit of Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. In that, that whole book was about, how we interpret the events in our lives and how our interpretation is what really matters. But while that was a very specific example, this book takes a look at the journey through a dark period or dark night of the soul in one's life, and looks at multiple examples, first of all, and second of all, looks at the tools and ways of being and things that will allow you to mine those times for meaning. Really flipping it on its head, because the way that Western society sort of deals with these prolonged periods of what is usually a profound change or profound transformation, accompanied by potentially some negative emotion, is we immediately want to label it, usually with depression. Then we want to medicate it, and we want to talk about it as if it was an obstacle to one's happiness, as opposed to reframing it as as I said, a transformative experience that can take us from one level, one way of being, to a completely transformed new level, new way of being. And I'm only a third of the way in, and it is one of the most important reads of my life. Like I can't think of another book that has had more of an impact on the way that I look at what I'm going through right now and the sort of dark periods in one's life than this book. And Trevor, if this has not been on your reading list or you have not read this one before, first of all, I'm surprised because I feel like Trevor's read every book on the planet. And second of all, I definitely recommend it, because I know just from being your best friend and knowing you for as long as I have, you've had these dark nights of the soul. And I think it would be really supportive for everyone, because we all go through this, to have something like this. And the guy who wrote it, Thomas More, is not he's not an actor, and I don't think he's really an artist in the, like, that's his profession. I think he's a therapist, but he's an artist in the big magic way, in that, like, he understands that in order, like, one of the things that we get to do is create art and create imagery for ourselves to give the what we're going through some kind of concreteness, some imagery, something to sort of hold on to support us in expressing it, if not understanding it. So it's been, like I said, I'm only a third of the way through, and it is turning me inside out, flipping everything on its head, blowing my mind. So I definitely recommend it. It is what I will be doing when we are done recording tonight. I'll be going back for more. I'll be diving back in to continue reading through it. So, Dark Nights of the Soul by Thomas More. Wow.
Yeah, I have heard of this book, but it hasn't been on my list, so it is now. Wow. So links to Inbox Pause and Dark Nights of the Soul on our website. Next week, we've got our 2016 review episode. This is the final episode of 2016 before we head into 2017. So we're going to take a look back at our years individually, what we declared at the beginning of 2016, take a look at where we are now, and sort of acknowledge some of the lessons learned, and share sort of what's next, where we're headed with this sort of new awareness. And I for one am very, very excited. I feel more clear about my life and who I am and where I'm headed right now than I think I ever have in my entire adult life. So I'm very excited to share a lot of things next week, just from my own journey, but also to sort of presence some of the lessons I've learned. And I know that you're going to have a lot of great nuggets to share as well, AJ. So make sure you guys tune in and don't miss our final episode of 2016, the 2016 review episode coming next week.
All right. Today's episode of Inside Acting was produced and co-hosted by yours truly, AJ Meyer, and of course, Trevor Algett. Jen Levin is our production coordinator, Gadali Gubarik is our marketing and web director, and Deborah Smith is our community manager. Editing help this week comes from Christopher Gray. Thanks again, Chris. And our logo was designed by Fern Lim.
You can sign up for our weekly email dispatch and listen to all of our recent episodes at our website, insideacting.net. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes. And if you do nothing else, a nice review on iTunes would be a really great way to sort of give us a high five on the internet there. It's a little bit like putting a tip in our tip jar, helps other people discover the show as well, and it just feels really nice as two guys who sink a lot of time and energy into putting something out into the world. It's great to hear that people enjoy it. So a public-facing review on iTunes that is a nice one. It's great.
So many stipulations for our love.
I know. So conditional.
It's completely conditional. Special thanks to our sponsors. Yeah, here's another way to our heart is give us money. Special thanks to our sponsors, Rehearsal Pro and ViotaGoGo.com, and thanks to you, our listeners. You can support the show in other ways, in addition to an iTunes review, a nice iTunes review, as Trevor put it, with a financial contribution, retweets, and kind public words. And by subscribing to our newsletter. Just visit InsideActing.net to get started. A big thank you to all of you who have supported the show so far. And a big thank you to those of you who are considering doing so. You can make a one-time, no strings attached, tax-deductible contribution to support the podcast via PayPal, Square, or Venmo. Just visit InsideActing.net/contribute. Or you can sign up as a member for $7 a month and get access to our private member message board, invites to exclusive events, fun freebies, special bonus content, so much more. Just visit InsideActing.net and click on the membership tab. Can I just say how excited I am for the Artist Way group? That and speaking of Grace, just a shout out to her. She reached out to me and basically said, I miss you and I hope everything's okay, because I hadn't been on the show in a while. So thank you for that, Grace. But she will be leading the group, right? The Artist Way group. Yeah. So I heard that on the last episode or episode before, and I got so juiced. I was like, yes, let's do this again. I love it. I'm excited. I'm going to jump back in. Like I said, I just finished, I said this recently in the podcast, I just finished a round of the Artist Way, and I'm excited to actually do it again. I really am. I got so much out of it. So looking forward to that. That does it for episode 260 of Inside Acting. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week for our 2016 review episode. But in the meantime, vibe.